Hello? Whoa. Wow. Okay. It's pretty loud. I feel pretty powerful. Hello. Welcome. My name is Paloma López. I'm the education manager for the Indian Arts Research Center here at the School for Advanced Research. Thank you all for joining us today to celebrate our 2025 Eric and Barbara Dobkin Native Artist Fellow, Sheridan MacKnight. I'm going to just get straight to the introduction so we can get going here. We are very fortunate to have sort of a special guest with us tonight, Tara Gatewood. She's going to be moderating the conversation. Tara is a citizen of Isleta Pueblo and Diné and is by birth a daughter, granddaughter, great-granddaughter, sister, aunt, and niece of strong, resilient Pueblo women. By trade, she is a storyteller, photographer, and print and broadcast journalist. Please join me in welcoming Tara Gatewood. Sheridan MacKnight, Lakota from Standing Rock Nation, White Earth Chippewa, and Scottish, is an established painter and jeweler based in Los Angeles, California, and Santa Fe, New Mexico. She has been a practicing artist for over 20 years and considers her artistic practice to be a reflection of her heritage, which she describes as a culture of women, regalia, love, prayer, hope, emotion, and hardship. Sheridan received her BFA from the Art Center College of Design and has received multiple top awards from SWAIA and the Heard Museum Markets. She has been featured in multiple exhibitions across the U.S., and her works are collected by both private and public institutions, including the New Mexico Museum of Art, Davidson Art Center, San Diego Museum of Art, MOCNA, and more. While in residence here at SAR, Sheridan worked on illustrating a Lakota English children's book. And I just wanted to take a moment to say what a pleasure that it's been to have you here on campus. I think everybody who has had the chance to meet you and interact with you would agree. You just bring such a warmth to sort of everything that you do and a joy, which has been wonderful. And on a personal note, I feel very lucky to be able to call you a new friend and to have had the opportunity to sort of see the world through your eyes. So thank you so much, Sheridan. And please join me in welcoming Sheridan MacKnight. Please hold for questions until the end. We will have some time for audience questions and then a very short walk over to the studio for a studio tour and a light reception. So thank you. Thank you.
Hinamamkiman Herimba, it is really an honor to have you all together as we learn about our sister's story, her inspirations, and where she comes from. And I think this is one of the most perfect seasons to be talking with this specific artist. Sheridan, your work comes with such a grace and beauty that kind of just greets you in a good way. And I really think, it really reflects the kind of season we're in where, remember when you were freezing and you had 2 sweaters on, couldn't get enough on your feet to keep them warm through the snow. And then you come to this time period in the spring where that warm breeze, it's really embracing you in a good way. And then we see the blossoms all around, and they come with such a delicate beauty to remind us of what we just went through. And I think I've had the privilege of seeing Sheridan grow as an artist, have known her for quite some time, and I really feel that that kind of reflection is happening too when I think of coming into this season, knowing the kind of ancestry you have, knowing the strong, resilient people you come from, and then you come at this world with such beauty and that grace. So what's happening outside, I think it may be happening in her heart too. So we're gonna do our best to welcome you into this space, and there's so much that I wanna ask you, so I hope everyone has 8 hours this evening. No. But we're going to do our best to explore as much as possible. And so thinking of everything that you have experienced, I know a lot of your inspiration comes from the people whose honor, whose resilience, whose sacrifice. That's why you're here. It's why you're sitting here with so many blessings. And I think it's only proper for us to really spend some time and reflecting on the people who are at your own foundation. And something special that you're getting this evening This is one of the best ways to take in Indigenous history, speaking with the living ancestors and what they have to say and what they feel. So I think you're really privileged tonight to learn about Indigenous history. And so when we think of the foundation, we have to make space for the people who were here before us, whose shoulders who we stand on, who were the ones who said yes, no, or just simply were silent, or either talked with a very large voice. And these people, they're with us. They're in our hands, they're in our hearts. They might even be a part of our own smile. So they're here with us in this way as we're taught as Indigenous people. And so connect us to the beautiful people who stand beside you and who are also holding you up right now.
That's why I'm so blessed you're here, girl. Now I can just float away. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thank you. Thank you, staff. You guys are, honestly, I almost cried, and I hadn't even begun my presentation, but SAR is a dream come true, and I'm glad you're all here, and I'm glad that you support them. I certainly am not leaving. No, well, I'm leaving, but I'm not going away. But yes, thank you, Tara.
And so we have somebody here who is important for many reasons, but just taking in this ancestor and thinking about how closely they're connected to you and your inspiration and power, what do you want to tell this individual? I mean, what rests with you before we get to learn more about them and their importance in the history of this nation? But what is your word to this ancestor?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, this morning when I woke up, I feel that all of my relations were with me, and in particular, Little Crow has been on my mind a lot lately. And I'm not sure if any of you have heard of him or you are familiar with the history of the Indian Wars of 1862. He was the Dakota leader who took a stand, he didn't want to, but he had to feed the people that were there that were starving. And I recently, you know, in our families, everyone's related. You know, I'm Hunkpapa Lakota, so I was always told Sitting Bull was related to me, and he is, but it's because he's Hunkpapa Lakota, so we're family. I was also told that Little Crow was related to me, so again, I thought it was because of just our family and what we take as everyone is our relations. And last year, it was really strange in modern the 21st century. I picked up my phone and I had a ancestry match, and his picture came up. He's my grandmother's grandfather, and he was such a poignant, strong, brave, and not perfect. You know, he went to Washington and he tried to do what he could, and when he got back to his people, they thought that they had been abandoned by him, but he stood strong. So I think what I would say to him is my reverence for him and his strength in spite of his imperfections. I'm so proud to be related.
And this certainly is a place, the School for Advanced Research, a place to really connect generations. I think involvement I've had with SAR, working with pottery, so many things, and even just walking through the hallway coming into this room, it's a calling from generations past. And I think so many times in our lives, we're always trying to figure out, how do we fit in their lives? And so this time here, you've really had a chance to think about your relationship to your ancestors. And I think we as Indigenous people, you hear us say that, but we really mean it. It's more than something cool to be said. We really consider who they are. We really consider what they've been through, and knowing the stories that come with these different ancestors. When you think of your work, you have the beauty of telling story through image. And for our listening, or for our audience, please share how deeply woven what they see, the beautiful works that you're putting out, how they directly connect to ancestors like this and others.
This is a good time. We haven't practiced. We're doing so good. Okay. Most of my work is women as the subject matter. You know, the grace. I think when I think of something to paint, I usually go right to a center character. And I really honestly believe that my grandmother, her name was, her Indian name was She Walks Alone, but her name is Eva Flying Earth. And in the Lakota language, her name is Makokyan, Eva Makokyan. And she lived in Standing Rock. She survived a lot of things. She had 9 brothers and sisters that died of the Spanish influenza. So when they passed, one died at boarding school. So when they passed, she was responsible for all of their allotment lands in Standing Rock. So she had over 2,000 acres of allotment land right on the Missouri River. But it wasn't important to her. She, receiving that land wasn't probably the best story, or something that her heart was probably broken at that time, I would imagine. But her strength, and she also attended the Carlisle Indian School. So again, her strength is what I see in my paintings when I'm using, when I'm thinking of how to project. Often I'll put eagle feathers, and she's basically my muse. And again, just, we all have history of those times, and it wasn't easy, and she got through it.
Mm-hmm. Let's spend a moment too just thinking about Indigenous women. And I was so great that was the introduction that I received, because that's who I am. I come from strong Indigenous women. And to be able to say that, I know is a privilege because of what they endure. And looking at your ancestor and hearing more about them, Indigenous women, they are so amazing. I mean, the ones that I've witnessed, the ones that I come in contact with, there is just something that comes when you see Indigenous women standing up and speaking. And I can only imagine the conversations she would take us to, hearing what she endured, and especially the time period that she lived. And so much of your work does bring attention to Indigenous women, and we know that we are so bombarded with stereotypes. Halloween is a time where things really get tested about what Indigenous women are about and who we truly are. And so you're speaking up for Indigenous women through your work and showing us who they are, and knowing that it's often related to your ancestor. I'd like you to just open that up more, because Indigenous women are so vital to this country. They're so vital to our Indigenous nations, and they often are the ones who are listening with the biggest ears to make sure that we're able to understand. Sometimes they're the ones who are providing a lot of reason and chaos, but there's so much that they're called upon to do in our Indigenous communities to keep them strong, to keep them healthy. And I know you're exploring a lot each time we see a feminine figure in your different work, but there's just so much to be said, and let's make that stage for them. Yes. Indigenous women, ready, 1, 2, 3, go.
I had a conversation with my daughter the other day about our matriarchal society, and she said, "Damn right, I'm the matriarch," and and I said, "It's always been instilled in us. It's always come pretty natural to be the leader, and I don't know how many societies out there really honor that and take that literally, but I believe as our country, as you know, we're in such an interesting time right now. I think that this is really the time to have these conversations about just what's important and matriarchal strength. And, you know, again, both my daughters are, can I say badass? Yeah, I can. They're just, I mean, and I see the generations, and again, going back to Eva, I can see that lineage that just came innately.
And when we think of our elders, our ancestors, and especially thinking of the time period that she lived in, it was kind of a no-nonsense time. Everything you did was so that you could survive. And I think of stories of my great-grandmother. You know, there was no playtime. Playtime was probably a cool drink of water and a soft bed. That was entertainment. That was, you know, and we think of the luxury that we live in today. These were no-nonsense women of this time, and they had to be in that space because that's what the world asked of them. And when you think of the strength that these women had, and if we were to compare our lives to them, it's, you know, we can get into a whole other conversation. They could probably run more miles than us, lift boulders higher above their head, but still, thinking of what they had and then the knowledge they were getting, what do you think? Because I know when we think of our ancestors, we can go many different ways, but anything floating in your mind?
When she went to Carlisle, she actually went into a nursing program. They had them go into, probably because of what they were doing there, learning about things anyway. She ended up getting her nursing degree, which was very interesting to me in probably the early 20s. And then I wanted to show this picture too. This is at Haskell, I believe, and she met, oh yeah, I can use this thing. This is my grandpa John, and she met him, but the interesting thing, I was looking at this picture and I thought, they're all in uniform. So I think they're off to the World War I. It's that time. And she became a nurse, so she was a nurse in that time. He went to World War I. He went into battle, which was, he was White Earth. She was Standing Rock, and it was almost like a Romeo and Juliet because they were enemies, those two tribes. I don't know if I answered your question, but I wanted to throw that picture. So it's very interesting. The boarding school time, too, I think was a real hard time, and we were having a conversation today about the differences in the geography of the country and how the boarding schools were somewhat different, cruel or beneficial. This boarding school here in the Santa Fe Indian School had art, which I think we're going to go into in a bit. But, oh, there it is. Whoa.
I think it's really exciting to be, again, in this city and speaking about this, the Santa Fe Indian School. There are a lot of stories. I even have a relative, my mother even went to Santa Fe Indian School, and there are many stories, but the fact that art was there, I think this really changes the pace, really changes the story about things that young people were thinking about. They lived in hard times, and being away from your family overnight, imagine that, being a young person, and then the next morning or next couple of days you wake up and you're living in a whole other world. That's a lot. And the fact that they had art to express the way they were able to think on paper, or think on canvas, or think in 3D art is really amazing. And for you, knowing the storied history, and there's also celebrations too. You know, there are so many stories when it comes to boarding schools or Indian residential schools, and art being there really is also influencing what we see today throughout markets, throughout the world. So you are connecting some really important spaces. And so I want you to share some of that journey. And please catch up folks too a little bit about the importance and the weight that the Santa Fe Indian School and the art that came out of there, how it really set a pace for many people.
You know, I started doing my work on ledgers, and I was considered a contemporary ledger artist, and I love that. But I kept looking at these old paintings that were here, that their origins were at the Santa Fe Indian School, and then I started kind of getting into the compositions and I used gouache, which they used. And I wanted to share, I just went to the library here, by the way, that has an amazing library. And it's a book on Dorothy Dunn. Dorothy Dunn wrote this book on Dorothy Dunn. So it's a rare one, but she was only here for 5 years. Or not here, I always feel like I'm here at Indian School. But she was at the Santa Fe Indian School for 5 years. I think that's one of those classic stories of the healing properties of art, and I think she really was there to help. I hope she was. I know we don't know exactly what happened, but the compositions that she had the students do, she'd gone to Chicago Institute and came back. So she was really trying to have the students reflect their art, their soul, their heart in their work. And I had the opportunity to go into the collections here. Has anyone been into the collections? It's amazing. There's all kinds of beautiful paintings. And this one in particular, I love the composition and the perspective. And then I was realizing I was doing this one at the same time, not really even knowing, and I went, wait, there's kind of the same feel with the one-point perspective. She's on a rug, they're on a rug. So in a sense, you immerse yourself in a situation, and I think as an artist, we do get inspired by what we see. And her name is Her Red Nations. And I haven't really thought of what it means yet, but I think it has a lot to do with history and teaching what we know, because I think it's very important right now. And she's looking at her relatives that are wallpaper, or are they her images? I'm not really sure.
And let's talk a little bit about the positioning, especially the image before and the way you're using this as well. Rugs, blankets, and the reason for being on them. Sometimes that's a story in itself, especially thinking about this image here and possibly what these two individuals are engaged in. And then looking at your piece, knowing also in your communities to be standing on a blanket like this is also a place of honor.
Yes.
Sometimes it was the buffalo robe, but you are really telling us a story too about this person's position and the honor of stepping, into this space. And space, oh my goodness, what that is showing in a piece of work. I think that's the fun part of hearing directly from the artists of why they position things in certain spaces, that it takes us somewhere else. Tell us more.
I like interpretations of my work too. And sometimes, again, the space, I absolutely love the negative space. I think it's haunting in a sense. Looking up here, I don't know if I could see, a detailed forest. I think negative space has always been used in history with many cultures. And with this one, it shows, she's got something in her hand. And I don't know if you would notice that if it was, the negative space brings it out. And she's praying. And we ended up in conversation talking about this, but I don't know if you can see the silver ball, the circles that are going kind of up. That's the power of her feather. And we weren't sure, and I say we because I have a lot of people that came into the studio and we discussed it. It was so fun to kind of shoot the whatever. but you know, we were trying to figure out if she was happy, if she was peaceful, and you know, the negative space brings all of that together. It creates more of I feel more of a statement.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's exciting, and I don't know how far back the one dates before, but you're seeing these concepts that relate through time. And that excites me, that you are directly connecting with artists who came before, and then you're using it in your own personal way. Mm-hmm. How does that make you feel that you're able to have a conversation on canvas with another artist from the past? And it's like a private conversation almost.
Wow, I hadn't thought of it like that. It does make me feel, it inspires me. It's inspiring just to keep going. And again, the collections here are amazing, and the inspiration and the history. And then you deep dive into where they came from, what nation, what pueblo, and it brings it all together. It's really an amazing thing to be an artist and to be a storyteller in that way. I'm quite enjoying it.
We're loving it. Okay, please take us into this piece.
So this one is The Women of Flying Earth. And like you said, it was speaking to me. It was a lot of things. There's a lot going on in this one. There's multi-generational matriarchal women in our family. And one could be the other could be my mother, could be my nieces, my children. And it's just, you know, when I was in Standing Rock years and years ago, we were sitting on a hill and we looked out and we could see my cousin Winona, Flying Earth, and we could see these lights on down below. And I said to her, I go, what are those? Are those are those fireflies? And she said, no, and she's very stoic, and she goes, no, those are our relations. And so I always try to honor that, and I always put the horizon line with our relations in the back. But this one I did during the Dakota Access Pipeline the first time. I love to use song sheets. I think I was sort of still using ledgers and songs. I still do. I go back to the song sheets. But this one was copyright, I think, early 1900s by the waters of the Minnetonka. And I went, okay, there we go. She's, I'm not sure if she represents the hope that we had then, and that there was a lot of prayer, and the entire world was with us during the Dakota Access Pipeline, and I think they still are. So this is just sort of what I was feeling in that time.
Wow, this is amazing. And we're at the 10-year anniversary. I think a lot of people are using this as a moment, and to really think about this, and the fact that you went to the canvas of your choice, this ledger, and song, I think that also tells a story too. The music within us as Indigenous people, that's a part of our foundation, and I really appreciate you bringing that into this space, and then also bringing in these figures. And when we think of what happened, and simply people today, they often call it Standing Rock. There's so much that happened there. There's so much that people took away from it. And to hear your narrative of that moment and to see it so graceful and full of hope, that's amazing. There were very hard times with what happened there, that to think if we were to put an image in our head as to something that relates us to what happened at Standing Rock, how often would we have this image? And so take us more into that of there was beauty there. And I think many people might have missed that.
There was beauty, and one of my daughters, Naya, and my granddaughter and I went to the march soon. And what we did with this piece, we blew it up to be about that size. And we walked it around, and it was exciting to be with people that were there, that were part of Standing Rock community. Congressmen were there, some Hollywood native folk, and we all, I think we were together, and I think that was the healing. And this was, instead of, some sort of abrupt, abrasive sign or poster, I carried this around. And I think that kind of answers it.
Yeah, and going back to your ancestor, her relationship to that exact same water, I think that's really important, because that water not only connects you to your ancestors, but that particular space connects many different indigenous nations, even people who reside in Oklahoma, all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. There's that water line that is so important, and that's something that as artists, I think when we need real truth in the world, I think we turn to our artists, and to see this truth as a part of that time, it's very inspiring.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
And so tell us more.
Oh, well, this one, you all know Pop Shili. I hope I'm saying her name right, too, Pop Shili. But she's always been an inspiration, and she was from Taos, and she started in Santa Fe Indian School in her 30s. And she was one of those people that used her work as a story, as inspiration. I don't think she was much of a rebel, but she definitely had the attitude and the forthright. She was an amazing woman. I'm looking for my friend that knows her, knew. But, okay. She was? Oh, she was? Okay. Oh, good. Now I love her even more. But her lines, I think I put this in because I was just so inspired by her craft. And this is something, I guess it was 1955, but her work is just so different and so ethereal. And in Albuquerque Airport, they still have all her work. And I don't know if you ever stop to look at it, but I do. I'm always, before I go into the gates, I have to just stare at her work. Quincy Tahoma is by far my most favorite. He was Diné, and his work is extraordinary. Just when we went into the collections room, I think I did cry a bit. They had put out many of his works. There were times, I believe that he might have had a very, very hard life because he passed on with a lot of sadness. But I think when he painted this piece, he was on fire. He was magnificent. And we just stared at it, and I highly recommend, if you can do it, if they can do it, to go in and see some of these 2D works by him. They're just, talk about inspiration. There's another Pop Shili. Another Pop Shili. And I love that she uses these deers so much that I use deers. This is one of my pieces. And I just finished it, so it doesn't have a title. But if anyone wants to help me out, whatever they see. This is Eva, and this was my grandmother. But I also was very influenced by a photographer named Horace Pula. I don't know if you're familiar with him. And it's sort of a combination, always grabbing inspiration. This one is amalgamation of line, and many of us are all many nations and cultures, and I loved putting all these women together. And I believe that the New Mexican Museum of Art owns this. I don't know what happened. Someone bought it. I think it might have been them. Oh, there we are. Yay! That's the collections. There I am, I'm glad I didn't drool over her work. Oh, okay.
Okay, and now, your time here, not only is it a chance to be with all these beautiful creatives, but this is a time you get to have to focus in on something you're really passionate about. And your artwork is coming to life in a book.
Yes.
Please tell them
Okay.
everything about it.
I'm going to start really quickly with a story. Years and years ago, probably 20 years ago, my aunt, Pat Locke, who was an iconic, amazing woman for Native people, I was attending classes at Art Center, and I was doing a course on book illustration, and I was telling her how happy I was to do it, and she said, "I've got the best book for you. It's about a woman who was saved by the wolves." She goes, "And you're gonna do it, and this is amazing." And I was taking her to the airport. She was probably off to Washington to lobby. And she goes, "You will do it because you're a Native woman." You know, there's the matriarchal thing going on. And I said, "Yes." And I started researching the story, and it was about a Lakota woman who was captured by the Crow. And she was living in a cave, and these wolves had come to save her by dropping off rabbits, and they got her through the winter. And I guess my cousin was talking to Paul Goebel, who's an amazing book illustrator, and he shared the story to him, and he beat me to the punch. And it's an amazing book, but it's the woman who lived with wolves. And I went, man, okay, there was my chance. And then, okay, so now we'll fast forward to 2 years ago. My cousin Kevin's daughter, Kimimala Locke, wrote a story, and it was accepted by Chronicle Books. And she was telling me on a walk one time, she said, "I'm ready to go, and I want you as the illustrator." And I remember from my school days at Art Center that publishers only have their artists. It's pretty much tight on that way. And I said to Kimmy, I said, "You can try. If you can do it, I'll do it." And she goes, I'm gonna try. And got a call a month later from the editor at Chronicle. She said, "We'd love to have you as our illustrator." So the book is called Belonging. And again, it's Chronicle Books. It's just, you know, the big kahuna of children's publishing out of San Francisco. And it's about a young woman, Kimimala, and her daughter, Ampa, traveling from Atlanta, Georgia, back home to Standing Rock. And they're going through all these areas and these beautiful places. But the best part of it is it's bilingual, and it's going to be in the Lakota language. So that is, you know, with our community, with the Lakota people, we want to share our language. We feel that it almost went away. So for it to be in a book for the entire world to see. And the story's simple. It's just, you know, from ages 5 to 8, but it's been wonderful, and I can see why she wanted me, because I know the family. I know here's the protagonist, the little girl, and that's the mama. And there I am in the studio. And it's so fun to work for a publishing company, because they are like a bunch of children. They're very sweet. I wonder if they're watching. And here we are. This is, I think, the second page, little montage, and I'm adding these lines, and again, the spiritual lines. I'm adding things. This is one that is, I kind of snuck it in, but I guess I'm telling if they're watching. This is my mother, Frances, and this is my Aunt Pat, the strong one, who wanted me to write the book. And I believe that she has a whole lot to do with why I'm doing this right now. She's passed on. More. This is the lake in the plains that looks like an ocean. That's the manuscript. Oh, okay.
Well, for me, and I'm all about Indigenous representation and thinking that there are going to be young Lakota children who are going to open a book, not only see words that hopefully they're using, or words that people around them are using. And then they see images of themselves in this book, how that's really gonna change the game. I think of books when I was little, and I was reading a book about Dr. Zhivago from Chicago riding a subway. This little girl in Isleta Pueblo reading something like that, and it's like, okay, how, I think of it, but it might be why one time I wanted to be a subway driver. But, but if I had opened a book and I had seen graceful, beautiful Pueblo women, what would that have done? And you're doing that. I think that in itself deserves a huge round of applause for breaking the mold, and really changing history. Tell me, does that excite you as well?
It's unbelievably, it's miraculous, actually, because it's always, you think of as an artist, what are you going to do to change the world? If you're a dancer, you dance, and if you're a writer, you write things. You try to break down these walls, right? And I've tried all these years to do these things like the Dakota Access Pipeline painting. You want to use your art in a way that, creates or makes a change. And then I think of all along, it's kind of like that Dorothy, Wizard of Oz. It was right in front of me with the children's book. The manuscript is beautiful, and it, there's just so much I can share, but it's so lovely. And I think it's going to inspire Native children as well as non-Native. And to do the ribbon skirts, and to think of, I have a carved wooden flute and drums, and there's one of the last scenes, they go to back, they finally arrive home, and the images that I've used for that, I think it's all going to be very relatable to Native people, but it'll also be it'll be something that non-Native people will see and learn about. So I think it's a magnificent thing. I'm very, very happy. It's a dream come true, really.
Mm-hmm. And the spirit of this story, and what you're getting to illustrate, is about belonging. Mm-hmm. And I think that gets me excited too, that you are specifically telling the reader, you belong in all of these spaces. You belong in the space where you lay your head, all the way back to where your ancestors come from. Mm-hmm. That's a powerful message.
It is. You and I should write a book. Let's do it. It's, again, and I didn't know there were areas too that also might not have been preserved as they should in the country, and I've been learning that through my book. Stone Mountain is beautiful, but there's carvings. There's things we had to edit out, and I have to be really strong with my convictions too. And Kimimala has really let me, she's sort of open, she's not telling me what to do, she's just like, you do it, Auntie, I trust you. So yeah, I can see my mind moving on to another project after this. Just keep going. Children's books are a lot of work, though. Dang. But I'm so glad that I've been here to do it. Yeah.
Well, if the two of us go missing, we might be in a nook somewhere. No. But where we belong, I think that's also your message throughout the world and through Indigenous art, that we as Indigenous people, we belong everywhere in the art world. And I know that's your message going out. No matter where it is, we belong. And we'll quote the book. Yeah. We belong.
Belonging, right. And is it okay to turn on to the other slide? Okay. Speaking of we belong in the art world, one of the most exciting projects I did was with this gentleman here, Ishi Glinsky. He's been to Santa Fe. He had a show at Shiprock once with huge jewelry. Do any of you remember his show? I hope he comes back. Just these huge necklaces and things that would fill a wall. So he's sort of he sees things in very large ways. And obviously, he called me to be a part of a couple of projects, but I thought, wow, we're actually getting into this contemporary art world and the show was at Hammer Museum, which is a huge, beautiful show in museum in Los Angeles. And it was artists in Los Angeles that they went to everyone's studios, and 22 were chosen, I believe. Melissa Cody, who's out of Long Beach, she's a weaver. She was there. Ishi, myself, and many other artists from different pueblos, Diné, and he's Totohonam. So we did this piece called Inertia Warn the Animals. And on the back, there's jingles, and he explained to me, he goes, I want you to do this, and I want you to do that, and I kind of just said, can I just draw a picture? Is this what you want? And he went, exactly. But he was art speak because he's so fabulous. But this was a 1,500 square foot room, and here's my piece. And people just got blown away. So it was Los Angeles, and I loved, we went to the opening, and all these people were lined up, and I thought, we're here. It's a Native artist who's an artist that happens to be Native, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for me to see it on a contemporary level in a city like Los Angeles. But that continues because the Venice Biennale came after that, and Jeffrey Gibson was here at the show. And then now Jeffrey Gibson's work is at the Broad, which is also one of the most fabulous museums in Los Angeles. So I feel, again, even though it's contemporary, it still teaches much. You look at all the different artists with their take on things. But I'm pretty excited about the world of art with natives.
Especially if you're in it.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that.
Well, we're going to open it up to the audience. If you have questions or just comments that you'd like to give to Sheridan, I'm going to put her on the spot. She's ready. Please, ask away.
And I have a mic back here, so raise your hand, and I will hand you a mic.
First row? Yeah.
Here and then here.
I noticed the pop chalet has the feather. Tell me about the evolution of how you sign your works.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Probably inspired by the minute I saw it. I loved, the feather is power. The feather means a lot. Feather is almost always in my work. So I think I was inspired by her signature as well. And they are very similar. Yeah, thank you.
We have another question up front.
Yeah, Sheridan, as you worked on the manuscript with the illustrations, did you do it sequentially, or did you find yourself dropping into a location and then sort of expanding out, either toward the front of the manuscript or the end of it, to kind of consolidate your vision?
That's a really good question. I started out by just I literally had a manuscript with, they call it a dummy, and I literally went from page to page. And then I'd fall asleep at night and just try to think carefully of how to connect the words. There was a lot of time where I've been thinking a lot about this book. That's why I say it was a very, very, very challenging thing. And then as I got closer, and it was like a jigsaw puzzle, things start to mesh and go together. And now I know everything in sequence. When you go to the studio, you'll see all the paintings. And I know what I need to do still. And so, but it was kind of a little of both, actually.
Okay, over here.
Two parts to the question. When will the book be published? And will you come back for a signing?
Yes. Thank you. That's right. That's a whole other thing I haven't thought of yet. I have to jump into that rock. The deadline is July, so I'm getting really close to the deadline. And as far as I know, the publisher, we're shooting for December this year. This year. So it'll be out. And I'm going to come here for a signing, if that's
If it's up to me,
I'm
then
not-
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm really not sure, because Chronicle, I'm sure that we'll be traveling. Yeah, and I know Kimmy, Kimmy Malalak, since she's the one that wrote the book, I'll be in her shadow. I'd love to be.
We have two over here.
Sheridan, weren't you working on translations of children's book into the Lakota language?
Was I working on the translations?
Yes.
Good to see you. We have a translator that's been hired by Chronicle. I don't think that I'm qualified. I really don't. But
you were working
give me
on
a couple of years.
You were working on the language.
Yes, the language will be, the manuscript's very simple, but we have someone that is actually currently translating, and my meeting is tomorrow with Chronicle, and I will meet that person tomorrow, I'm certain, because it's getting down to the wire here. But I'll let you know, Gerald.
Hi. You referenced twice negative space, both in the San Ildefonso paintings and in your own. Negative space is very, very important in Pueblo decoration pottery. Did you do a lot of that looking while you were in the collection? And what draws you to this negative space?
Ooh, that's a good one. Wow. Wow, it draws me. I think I mentioned earlier the negative space is almost a haunting sort of. If you have too much going on, it seems the negative space is a good juxtapose to what I'm trying to do with the figures. I'm looking at those too, the center, the composition with my paintings, and it usually, gosh, it's such a good question. I guess I'm just drawn to it instinctively. Does that make sense?
Up front, and then I'll return to you here in a moment.
Yes. My question is about the Lakota language. You implied that it was getting close to extinction, and I'm just wondering to what extent it is currently used, and is it being utilized in the educational system?
It is definitely come back. I wanted to introduce myself in the Lakota language. I'm always impressed when we do those things, but I'm sort of a void generation. My mother was the daughter of a woman that went to boarding school. And I used to think that's a terrible, I don't have an excuse, but I do have an excuse. My daughters, in particular Naya, is teaching her daughter. And if you go to, anywhere, that I'm sure you've heard it. I'm getting to the point where I can understand it now because it's in so many films and documentaries. My friend here knows a lot of it. She was in a film. Yeah, but thank you. That's a good question. And it's coming back. It is.
And in the educational system?
Yes, there's, now, if I could go, probably when I go to Standing Rock, I'll be able to tell you what's going on. There was a school at Sitting Bull College that may need to come back, I think, but I believe that a lot of the elementary schools in that area there was an incentive too with Biden for the schools to actually take it as a first language. I'm thinking of all these things now that are changing. It'll come back.
Sheridan, we've talked about your 2D art, but you also make jewelry.
Oh, I do, yes.
Talk a little bit about how that fits in.
Thank you. That's nice of you. during 2008, remember when we were sort of struggling financially, I wasn't sure if my paintings were the way to go. And a friend of mine here in Santa Fe said, you should start doing jewelry. And he said, you should do this. Cody Sanderson, he's quite, yeah, he likes to be, he goes, you should do this and call them little paintings and you can get them going. And he goes, do it this way and do it that way. And you know what, he was right. I was really enjoying it. And I do these, I use parfleche to honor, you know, my tribe. And then I'll use the little painting. Oh, thank you. So this is one of them. This, yeah, thank you, Roland. And I think it's as much a passion of mine as the painting. It's beautiful, and all my friends are wearing my work today. Thank you for asking, Kathy.
That is exactly the question I was going to ask.
Oh, great. Great minds. I think we have time for maybe one more question if anybody else has another question that they'd like to ask Sheridan.
Yay.
Perfect ending.
Oh, I'm scared of you.
It's more of a comment. I mean, I think we're all enthralled that we can get a children's book that's going to have 28 renderings of paintings. Each one could take, you know, I've seen you take 6 months or more on a painting. And, you know, it's not like graphic design where you just be like, oh, let's all do this and that. It's like literally a dream, a vision, and it comes through. And you're talking about negative space, but I'm also thinking about text and how exciting it is when there's a text that tells you a story, and then there's things that might not be pointed to. This sort of like story under the story, the negative space. And sometimes you get that in the illustrations, the little feather that's there in the corner, or who are these two aunties that are suddenly making appearance, to open up that it's more than what's on the written page. And one of the stories, it may or may not be in the book, but you didn't specify it today. You were just pointing to Kimimila without any qualifications. I noticed that it appeared that she was part African American as well, and it's so a big breath to see, you know, these children of mixed heritage being embraced. They come to powwow, and yes, they get to dance in the intertribals. You know. I hope that's the way for everybody. And yeah, just a shout out to all of her magnificent lineages. And, you know, it's showing Atlanta and, you know, how the Underground Railroad was actually supported by Native reservations. Like that was the escape route. It was being able to go to people that some of them became relatives. So thanks for telling that story without telling that story.
Thank you. That's true. Very good. Yeah, and it's, it is an honor. It's an honor to have that mixed race in there too. It's the beginning. I mean, we've been going down this road for many years. You know, when I was, I'm Scottish and Native, and I'm two tribes, which was weird. I mean, now it's, you know, I'm, what is it, like Africa? There's all kinds of really cool names of some people. What do you call yourself? Is Ollie here? Is she here?
She's out.
Oh, she's out. Oh, well, she's got her nickname because she's part Japanese. But it's just, you know, it is true. It's the way it is, and it's another way of belonging and having children being able to relate to that. Thank you, Roland.
Thank you. That was a wonderful sort of note to end on. Thank you for that. And thank you all for coming. And thank you to Sheridan. And thank you to Tara Gatewood for leading the conversation. So for those of you who are here in person, please come and join us in Sheridan's studio. She has a lot of her beautiful work up, and also her gorgeous jewelry is up. So you can come follow Catherine here in the red shirt. She's going to walk down, and if you don't know how to get there, you can follow her. Thank you so much.